All right, thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lynn Nakarin here, joined today by special guest attorney Rachel Kaufman. Look, we're here today because we, of course, as we've been watching very closely for the last week plus, we're keeping an eye on the latest out of Fulton County with the Trump case. And a grand jury has now started to hear testimony today in this case underway in Fulton County right now. Just a short time ago, we actually heard from Representative B. Wilson that she actually, testified before this grand jury. And we're seeing this video of a local journalist, Mr. Chitty. We also know that former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan is expected to testify. Mr. Chitty expected to testify as well. And here in this newsroom, we have been anticipating a potential indictment sometime this week. So, Attorney Rachel Kaufman, okay, you deal in Fulton County in that courthouse regularly. What are you thinking in terms of the timeline of when this could happen?
Well, so as a Fulton County practitioner, what I find kind of interesting is that for at least the past week, there's been a much larger police presence around the courthouse. There's been barricades. You can't park where you're usually able to park, and a lot of the criminal courtrooms have really shut down, kind of anticipating, I guess, what is going to be this indictment. So it's taken a little bit longer than I expected. But here we are. We're at the place where I think that, she said, Fani Willis has said that she's ready to go, which I thought it meant that she was actually going to be indicting him that day, but I guess it meant that her investigation was complete, which I find kind of interesting because there was the 7-month special grand jury that heard tons and tons of testimony then, but it may mean that the investigation was ongoing in that continued suspected criminal activity was occurring up until when she said that she's actually ready to go to present it to the grand jury. So they're now hearing it. If we don't have an indictment by the end of the week, I would be surprised, but not shocked, I guess I should say. I'm hopeful that she'll get it in by the end of the week because it is stopping a lot of the other criminal cases from moving through the docket.
Yeah, and it seems that most experts do believe that we could get the indictment actually tomorrow, just based on the fact that the grand jury is already hearing testimony today, and typically, apparently, in Fani Willis's cases, grand juries typically will get a case. What we've noticed is a pattern of grand juries hearing testimony for 2 days and then dropping the indictment, then dropping, or my colleague Brendan Heath was careful to point out an indictment going up, not coming down in a way, because it goes from the grand jury to other authorities. And what do you think of that point?
It's two ways of saying the same thing. It's going up. They may be going down. Depends on who you are, I guess, as a party to the indictment.
Yeah.
But I do think that we'll have an indictment by the end of the week, and I think it will likely be a RICO indictment, which means it's going to involve several criminal defendants, and several different allegations of criminal conduct, some in Fulton County and likely some elsewhere throughout the state.
Yeah, so that's actually a great point. I'm so glad you brought this up, the potential for RICO charges, because we saw in the federal indictment that happened. Now my time is getting mixed up. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, but it's four federal counts there. 3 of them were conspiracy type charges, conspiracy related charges, and 1 was obstruction/attempted obstruction. But here in Fulton County, there's certainly been a lot of talk about the potential for that racketeering charge. Why do you say that we could see that, and what elements are met here in this case potentially that could fit that legal analysis?
Well, so there has to be a number of predicate acts, and in Georgia, the state statute versus the federal statute on racketeering, there's a number of, it's a much broader statute in Georgia, so it includes more types of criminal offenses that can be part of the predicate offenses that make up this kind of criminal conspiracy, this enterprise that engages in predicate offenses in furtherance of a common criminal goal. And that's, I think, DA Fani Willis, she actually was like the lead prosecutor in the Atlanta public school trial, which was a RICO case. Currently in Fulton County, we are handling. I'm not handling, but it's taking up a full courtroom to handle the Young Thug, Young Slime Life case, and that's also a RICO case. So basically, what we can expect is, I would say, over a year, maybe years of litigation and clogging of a criminal courtroom. Not to say that it doesn't need to be litigated, but it's just going to add more stress on a system that is already kind of like busting at the seams.
Interesting. Okay, so and that's been one of the criticisms of RICO, but you make a good point that Fani Willis has prosecuted numerous cases using RICO, including the Atlanta teachers case, YSL, and several others, and you're started to detail a little bit the kind of legalities as to why RICO would would potentially be one of the indictments that we see. Can you kind of break down a little bit, like, what is required for legally, in terms of elements of the law, for a RICO charge, and why could we see that here?
Well, so there has to be more than one predicate offense, which is detailed in the RICO statute. It can be one of several, I think more than 50 offenses, including computer trespass, which is I think one of the ones they're looking at for the Coffee County element of this Fulton County case. So there has to be one or more predicate offenses that makes up a criminal conspiracy. The reason that prosecutors like to use it is because you get to bring in a lot more evidence about a lot of other individuals' behavior who may not be directly connected to the behavior that you're prosecuting the person for. So with Donald, the phone call that President Trump was on in Fulton County, maybe the people in Coffee County didn't have direct involvement in what happened in Fulton County, but there was a comment that, I think what the prosecutors are going to be arguing is that there was a direct, common goal, and that they were all acting in furtherance of that goal. And so by putting them all in the same indictment, I guess it adds to the story that the prosecutor is trying to tell. I think it also makes it difficult for a criminal defendant to, maintain the presumption of innocence when you're hearing that everybody under the sun around them is doing, engaging in these kind of activities. Mm-hmm. And also, when you have multiple co-defendants in a case like this versus just individually charging someone with a crime, what you have are the likelihood of people being willing to tell on other people. And so, you'll see people quickly after the indictment likely attempt to resolve their cases by providing information that would be helpful to the prosecution against some of the other defendants, and then the chips start falling.
Yeah, interesting. And so, how many indictments or how many counts could we see with this indictment, or shall I say, how many indictments?
So I guess it would be an indictment against each of the co-defendants, but it will likely be under one case number. I would guess, based on the way that things look like they're going, I'd guess there's 75 counts. I mean,
75.
Yeah,
counts.
And that would not be uncommon for how the Fulton County DA's office indicts a case of that nature.
Why do you say 75 counts? How'd you come up with that?
I don't know. How did I come up with that? That's a good question. Just because what they'll do is they'll charge each of the defendants with as many of the offenses as they possibly can, and so some may be charged individually with certain counts. So there'll be a charge in the indictment that's just against one of them. But then also, I just think that there's going to be a number of different ways that the state is going to charge it. There's tampering with evidence, which is a charge. There's obstruction of justice, which is a charge. There's all those election tampering, those criminal charges, and then you have computer trespass. There's a lot of different types of charges going on here, and I think that usually indictments are over-inclusive.
Excuse me.
No, you're good.
Apologize.
So they're over-inclusive. I think it's going to be overly thorough in the same way that it's taking so long.
Yeah. So, what are the potential indictments that we could see, most importantly, against the former president? What charges are we looking at apart from RICO?
Well,
Conspiracy?
Conspiracy. I mean, he attempted to tamper with an election. I mean, he attempted, and those are those are felonies in Georgia because it's like subverting democracy. So,
Excuse me.
so he's looking at charges like that. I mean, if he's instructing or soliciting other criminal defendants to engage in certain conduct, he can be charged as a party to those crimes as well. So, how far they take that recorded statement, if there's more statements that we just don't know about, he could be charged as a party to a crime, and anything that he attempted or solicited another individual to do that was criminal.
What about potential defenses?
So I guess I have not been privy to the 7 months of special grand jury testimony. When it comes to President Trump, I mean, I think that he's making it hard for his defense team, but he's somebody who does not have a filter. He's someone who says a lot of things. He talks a lot, and I think that when he made that call, it is true that he needed that many votes to win. So that he did need them. I mean, and he was saying that out loud. That is what he would need to win. If people want to give him the defense of being a verbal processor, I think that would be my best defense for him, is that he says a lot of things out loud. I say a lot of things out loud that I don't intend somebody to go do something with. And that's how, one of the defenses to a RICO indictment is that, what I did was not in furtherance of this common goal of doing that. It's just really to win. Like, if we were playing basketball, I need 10 points to win.
Okay.
You did need them. I mean, he did need them to win. That's what he was saying. But he was saying it to people who could potentially find those. I mean, I think he said, I need to find them. He was not saying that to, his wife or a friend. He was saying that to people who have the ability to potentially find those votes for him in a way that's criminal. And so how far he went, I think, is going to be what the grand jury is really looking at. But it sounds, she seems incredibly confident. It's still the grand jury's decision on whether to pursue the indictment, but they'll say, like, the grand jury will indict anything. So it's very rare that a case is going to be no-billed, especially with this level of testimony, and the fact that at a grand jury proceedings there is no defense attorney testing the evidence. There's really no opportunity to provide a defense for any of the individuals who are being prosecuted, being sought for the indictment. So it's not until after an indictment that a defense can even really be raised.
Any final thoughts, Rachel, before we let you go?
My final thoughts are just that we're spending a lot of resources in Fulton County protecting the courthouse. I know Sheriff Pat Labat had talked about how he has people out there every day. I just want, the criminal justice system in Fulton County needs to continue moving at a pace that keeps the people who are in jail safe. And I just I'd like to focus on the backlog that was created by coronavirus, and make sure that all cases are moving and that we're not just like clogging courtrooms unnecessarily. But we will see. We'll see in the next day or two. But I'm not gambling on it, because I don't gamble on anything, so I'm always wrong.
Got
And
it.
that's all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're
Attorney.
very welcome. It's good to see you, Joy.
Great to see you, Rachel. Attorney Rachel Kaufman joining us with her analysis. Just a reminder for everyone, our web team has done an amazing job of just organizing everything all in one place. And I really encourage you, because, again, this is potentially the fourth indictment for the former president right here in Fulton County. Remember, there's a federal indictment out of Washington, D.C., the federal indictment out of Florida in the alleged documents mishandling case, and the indictment out of New York in the alleged hush money payment case involving Stormy Daniels, the adult film star. So look, this section on our website, you just click up here, Trump investigation, and it leads you to that. You have all the stories here, so it's organized, and you can get up to speed and really try to understand what's happening here. There's a lot. So we've organized, with the key figures, the timeline. Encourage you to check that out on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.